Hey, what's up? My name is Daniela and welcome to a new vlog. So in this vlog we are going to do a little reading experiment, and I'm going to be reading books that Booktube made me read. And let's be honest, these days Booktube makes up like 90% of my inspiration for the books I read, but still there are some types of books and genres that I'm more naturally gravitating to and that I might still read even if people didn't talk about them on Booktube. But on the other hand, then there are some books that I would probably really not picked up on my own if people weren't talking about them on Booktube. So basically the goal of this video is to expand my comfort zone for a little bit and hopefully enjoy some books that, you know, I wouldn't naturally pick up on my own. I'm quite hopeful for this challenge, but it can also very well just backfire, so we will see. I think I will be picking 3 books for this video, and I haven't chosen all of them, but yeah, I just really hope that I will like at least one of them. Hello! It's the same day and I'm reading my first book, and I actually started this book a few days ago and it spurred the whole idea for this challenge. So yeah, I'm reading Kaikei by Vaishnavi Patel and I'm already on page 170. By the way, what Victoria read bookmark. This is from the Cats line. Can't remember if there was like an official name, but yeah, I got like 4 of the bookmarks with her cats. And yeah, I believe she has now some autumnal line, so I will link that in the description. But yeah, I've been using these bookmarks all the time now. They are stunning. But anyway, this is definitely a book that I would probably never picked up myself if I wasn't inspired by people talking about it on Booktube. So this is a book that's inspired on Indian mythology and Ramayana, which I don't really know anything about, so I don't know the story. And I also, well, I read like the introduction, but that didn't stick much yet. I might read it like after I finish the book, because then I will know the story. So yeah, I went into this not knowing much, and yeah, but just the way people talked about it on Booktube kind of got me a little bit intrigued. And then the other day I was at the library picking up actually books for another video, and I just saw this there and it kind of called out to me, so I grabbed it. And to be honest, I was thinking that maybe like I would start reading it and I wouldn't like it, or it just wouldn't be grabbing my attention. And yeah, I was expecting to DNF it or not really enjoy it, to be honest, because like I don't do well with mythology. I don't know much about mythology, like yeah, almost nothing, like any kind of mythology, and it usually just isn't my thing. It's not something I look for. So yeah, usually I don't read any mythology books. So yeah, this is a huge exception and it's quite out of my comfort zone. But actually, like, I have been pleasantly surprised. Like, it has been a slow read for me so far, but that's kind of the theme of this year overall, so I'm not really blaming the book. And yeah, I'm actually quite enjoying it. Like, it gripped my attention right from the start, even though like at the beginning, so we follow Kaikei, and at the beginning she is a child. She's maybe like 12 at the beginning of the book, and I really love like child narrators, but she has been growing up quite quickly. So yeah, she basically grew up as a daughter of a king, and she grew up among brothers, and she's always been interested more in the things that men typically do in this kingdom, which is fighting, learning how to ride a horse, you know, be a warrior. And she has one brother that she has a close relationship with, and he's actually teaching her how to do this stuff. So she's pretty well trained in that by the time she grows up, and by the time she's like 16, 17, she is ordered to marry this king of a neighboring kingdom, and he already has like 2 wives, but they haven't had an heir. And basically so far it's about Kaikei stepping into her power and also trying to change things for women, both for herself and other women in the kingdom. And there's also a magic element in this book, so she has this power that she can see like relationships between her and other people as these strings, and so she can see like how strong it is, if it's like upset or something, and she can also like send thoughts down the string and this way kind of manipulating people. So yeah, that is very interesting, and I've just been really enjoying reading about her as the main character. She is quite strong-willed but also like awkward at this new kingdom where she kind of hasn't found her footing yet. So yeah, I think she's quite multifaceted and, you know, quite relatable in some aspects. I'm also enjoying the feminist angle. Like, she's at a point where she's like, when she hears like, oh, women are oppressed, like, I mean, they don't say women are oppressed, but when she like hears about some way in which women are oppressed and she thinks about why that is and realizes that it, you know, obviously because of the men, then she's like, well, that's bullshit. And then there's also like gods, and yeah, she's starting to realize that maybe, you know, they are using religion as a crutch for the oppression. It is Sunday today and I woke up at 5 AM and didn't fall back asleep. So I'm making some progress in Kaikei. I'm approximately 50% in, so I might finish today, maybe. I will try. I have my fall ambience on and yeah, enjoying a nice Sunday morning. So I did finish Kaikei on that day. Now it is the next weekend. I don't think I explained well what this book is actually about in the last clip. So basically, it is a retelling of Ramayana, and in case you don't know, like I didn't know, in the original tale it's about Rama, and well, I don't know how much of like the retelling is actually in the original tale, but it's basically like he was born to humans, but he is a god and he's supposed to rule this kingdom, but he is banished from the country by his stepmother, and it is like said that she's evil or jealous or whatever. And the author said that, the author of this book said that she was like looking for stories from the point of view of Kaikei, of the evil stepmother, but she couldn't find any, so she wrote her own one. So yeah, basically the whole book is from the perspective of Rama's stepmother. So yeah, we see her whole life story and we see her reasoning and circumstances of how the banishing and all of the other stuff happened. I was so pleasantly surprised by this book. I think I said that I wasn't even sure if I was going to finish it. I thought that maybe I would start it and I would just find out that the subject matter and like the mythology ignorance on my part is like not compatible with me enjoying the book. But it wasn't the case. Even though I don't know the mythology, it was a compelling story. I really like the character arc and just, yeah, following Kaikei in a lot of parts. It was quite slow, it was quite slice of life, but I enjoyed that. And then it got quite intense. And actually the fact that I didn't know the mythology meant that I was more surprised by some plot twist. I didn't see some, you know, villains coming. I really like how Kaikei had a feminist agenda in the kingdom and how she was trying to improve not only her life or the life of the women who were on the same level in this in society as her, but also, you know, everyone, including the servants. I have to say that near the end it got a bit sad. Like, it kind of got to a point where it was like, you just can't win as a woman, and like, even though you make all of this progress happen, like, it can go away like that. And yeah, it got me a bit sad, but like, it wasn't all miserable. I was just thinking that if you can do anything, maybe you could go even more in, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed it. Kaikei's story arc kind of ended up being more nuanced than I expected, because the foreshadowing at the beginning of the chapters kind of made me think different things than ended up happening. So yeah, it was quite, some things were quite surprising. One thought about the magic system, which I really liked the concept of it, but I thought that the morality of it could have been explored a bit more, because for Kaiki it was like, I can do this thing and I'm doing it, and okay, maybe I want to do it like around certain people, but that was maybe about the extent of it, and then it was, oh, this person can do something similar, but in their case it's really, really bad. So yeah, maybe we could have talked about it a bit more. So the verdict is that I'm so glad that Booktube made me read it. I would never pick it up on my own, but I really ended up enjoying it, and you know, it was something totally different, and I think I'm giving it 4 stars because I really enjoyed it, but at the same time it didn't like totally rock my world. But yeah, really happy about this one. The second book I'm choosing for this video is Slay by Brittany Morris. So I don't know how popular this book actually is on Booktube, but I heard several booktubers rave about it, like they absolutely loved it, and I think that I wouldn't read this because I probably wouldn't know about it like if I didn't know it from Booktube. Also, it's young adult, which I don't read that much of these days. Also, recently I read Warcross by Marie Lu, that's kind of based around a similar concepts, and I didn't enjoy that one much, but I'm still quite intrigued about this one, so we're giving it a chance. So in this book we follow a 17-year-old Kiara who is a senior in high school, and so she's dealing with all of that like college application drama, and then her story is that by night she is this game developer of this virtual card role-playing fight game something like that, that is specifically designed for Black people. It's all based around Black culture, and of course no one in her family and even her boyfriend doesn't know that she has this secret life where she is the developer of this game. As soon as the first scene with him came, I was reminded of that meme that is like, I bring the you should break up energy to the conversation with my female friends when they complain about their boyfriends, because yeah, maybe they should break up. So far I don't really like the boy. He kind of seems to tell her what to do, and yeah, it seems like she might be like under pressure from him, but we will see where that will go. We also had like a game tournament sequence, and yeah, that might be my problem like with these kinds of books, because I'm drawn to them because I'm interested in like the development part, but at the same time, like, I was a gamer when I was a kid. Like, I was playing a lot of games of that time when I was a kid and a teenager, but since then I don't really game, so I'm not really interested in that part much. Okay, I'm 95 pages in and the plot thickens, but mainly I will have to read this quickly so that I can stop reading about the main character's boyfriend. He's criticizing her, he's criticizing other women, and now the main character said that she might be sick, and like she was feeling sick, and he was like, you better not be pregnant. What? Also, the author is really ramping up the stress, like obviously having a second secret identity or like something that you're trying to hide from the world is going to be stressful, but yeah, she's really ramping it up. Like, everyone wants something from the main character and she just can't get a break, and yeah, it's all very dramatic. So I finished Slay last night, and did it slay? Yes, it absolutely did. About the boyfriend's behavior, which I have been yammering about since the beginning, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that it got worse, because I think from the first scene it was pretty obvious, to the point that reading about his toxic behavior and how he treated the main character and how she kept excusing him was quite frustrating and a bit heartbreaking to read. So if you might find this distressing, proceed with caution. In this regard, I almost wish that we got some nice scenes with him, because the main character kept like reminiscing on you know, some great times they had together, which is very normal in these situations. But every scene we got with him, he was unbearable from the start. So about the plot and the plot twist, I did not see that coming. Maybe I should, but yeah, I didn't. In the plot there was this thing that can fly because it's a young adult book, but it's when the character is put in some difficult situation and she makes some drastic rash decision, and then she's like, well, I have no other choice. So like, and it's like a plot device. Like obviously that wasn't the only choice. Also near the end I wasn't sure about the plot makes that much sense in terms of some of the technical stuff, and like if a certain character would know how to do that. In terms of the game elements, I came to enjoy them quite a bit more than at the beginning, but otherwise the atmosphere was great, the tension was high, and we got some like sweet sister relationship between the main character and her sister, and also with some of her friends. We also got a couple of chapters from other people's perspectives, which I didn't know going in, but yeah, there weren't too many, and I think that they really added some depth to the story. So there was this discussion about game industry kind of in general, how in a lot of the games it isn't that good for black people because like other people attack them, or they aren't many good options to choose a black character and stuff like that. And then there was a public discussion about like if this game, which the main character created for black people, and like you have to have a code from a friend, if it's like exclusionary, or some people even like claimed that it was racist. It was kind of the typical case of thinking like, how could they even think stuff like that, but then they say it on TV and other people agree with them. And there was this kind of discussion that some characters in this book thought that their way was the best way to be an activist, but in the end they ended up being kind of elitist and incredibly misogynistic. So it definitely packed a punch, it made me feel things, and I couldn't help but keep comparing it to Workers by Marie Lu, because the concept is quite similar and the game is quite similar, even though in Workers it wasn't her game, and in this case the main character created it. But yeah, still I like this one much better than Workers, even though yeah, like we basically got zero things about the actual game development other than like some mentions of how they commissioned some artists to do stuff, like some graphics, but yeah, no coding, unfortunately. So this was another success. I'm so glad I finally read it. If it sounds at least a bit intriguing to you, I recommend it. And we have our last book for this challenge, and that is Emily Wales' Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. So this for me is the definition of Booktube made me do it, because at the beginning of this year when I was watching the best books of last year videos, I started seeing this book, and at first I wasn't that intrigued. Like some researcher goes into some secluded village to research these fairies, which yeah, as that itself didn't intrigue me much, but then it was like on everyone's and their mother's favorites video, so I started getting FOMO. And then also I realized that it's also like some enemies to lovers romance, because also her rival arrives to the same village, it seems. And then I was more intrigued. Also, it's kind of stunning. So yeah, the hype and the FOMO really got to me. So eventually I caved, and when I saw it at the bookstore in the summer, I think, or in the spring, I grabbed it, and I still definitely need like that push to actually read it. So yeah, I'm including it in this challenge, and hopefully I will enjoy it. Also, it's historical, so it's set in 1909 in this like Norwegian village. And I read the first chapter, and it's giving me Eleanor Oliphant vibes a little bit, which is a very, very good sign. So yeah, we might get along, but let's see. Oh hey, I reached a chapter about 21st of October and today is the 21st of October. Cool. So I have finished Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I just finished it like an hour ago, so my thoughts and feelings are still a little bit tangled, but at the same time I don't really want to overthink what I say about this book at this time. So this book ended up being quite personal for me, which I definitely didn't expect. So you saw me saying after the first chapter that I was getting Eleanor Oliphant vibes, and after a couple more chapters I realized that Emily is quite clearly autistic coded. I even went back a little bit and started like tabbing some autistic things. And this quite surprised me because I don't think I've heard anyone mentioning this, but of course some people, a lot of people probably might not clock it as autistic, and then also it's never stated that the character is autistic, so it's not canon. After finishing the book, I went on Goodreads and I word searched in all of the reviews for autism or autistic mentioned, and I found that there is quite the discussion, with several autistic reviewers also picking up on the clues, and some of them ended up loving it and some of them ended up hating it. And that discussion made my feelings about this book a bit more complicated, but yeah, I think that both parties, both sides of the discussion, even though I guess the people who loved it didn't really discuss it much, but yeah, both of the sides are valid. So basically Emily is described as struggling with social situations. She doesn't understand social cues and social dynamics well. She kind of offends people without meaning to. There are misunderstandings. She doesn't like small talk much because like she's never been good at it. She's most happy when she can talk about her special interest, aka the fairies. She's quite an accomplished scholar and she can easily spend hours absorbed in the research work. And she's really good at it, partially because of the hard work she's putting in, but also because she's very good at what some might call intuition, but in reality is more like the pattern recognition, which comes in handy in any research work. Of course, she is seen by some of the characters as rude and cold-hearted, etc. And then we have her friend, rival, scholar Wendell, who comes to the same village, and so they live in the same cottage. And he's kind of the opposite of her, so he's very outgoing and charming, and you know, he can make all of the people love him. And so the dynamics between these two was very interesting, and it was actually one of the things that I enjoyed about the book, but also some reviewers raised some potential red flags about the interactions. So basically Wendell is also one of the people who call Emily cold-hearted and like mad woman, which is a valid point, and I would definitely be like careful about the relation dynamics, and it was kind of borderline, but at the same time like their banter was just out of this world on both sides. So Emily was also like attacking his character and kind of thinking the worst of him at first. I think that although they have been friends before, the adventures in the book really made them much closer, and they got to know each other much more. And I think that with regards with the mutual lashing out at each other, there was still respect, and I think that if concerns were raised about some specific things, it would be heard. But yes, as I said, something to be kind of careful about. So I understand why some people pointed it out. I want to share a couple of quotes that really stood out to me. And so in this one we have a conversation between Emily and Wendell, and he says, "You know, Em, you could make life so much easier for yourself if you tried to be liked once in a while." "I do try," I say over loud. His words stung more than he could have guessed. "I tried and tried, or at least I used to, and nothing had ever come of it." Well, there are few lines in literature that I could relate to more than this. And then there's this one, which is Emily thinking about Wendell, and it is actually a line that convinced me that their dynamics are quite hopeful, because she said, It sounds odd to admit that I find the company of such a boisterous person restful, but perhaps it is always restful to be around someone who does not expect anything from you beyond what is in your nature. And that really hit me in the feels also, because yeah, that can be quite hard to find for autistic people, and I think for disabled people in general. And that last quote I want to share is partially out of the autistic topic, although maybe kind of connected to guarding yourself. And it says, when Wendell says, "If you do not admit kindness from others, you cannot be surprised when they fail to offer any." When it comes to Emily being autistic coded, autistic reviewers find themselves in a difficult situation because the author hasn't said that the character is autistic. So it is not an official representation, so it cannot be criticized as such. But multiple autistic reviewers recognized it as such, even though it is not named. But on Voices, people can still share their thoughts about it. To sum up some of the criticism I read on Goodreads, it is that Emily is very stereotypically depicted in not being good in social situations, and especially with regards to empathy. So a lot of autistic people actually have heightened empathy. I also have heightened empathy, yet I have been called cold-hearted or heartless in my life. And in Emily's case, first when she arrives to the village, she is really focused on her research, and she isn't really interested in meeting the townspeople socially, and like she just met them, so she doesn't care about them much. But throughout the book she starts forming kind of relationships with these people, and she does care about them to some extent. But of course, due to differences in communication and emotion expression, it doesn't always come across as such. So basically the reviewers were concerned that the book emphasizes lack of empathy on Emily's part, which is, as I can confirm, a harmful stereotype. I'm kind of two minds on this. I can definitely see the merit of that point, but also, well, first I think I might be a bit cynical, and I think that if people want to believe stereotypes, they will. And also at the same time, it's not even official rep, so most of the people might not even connected it to autism, even that is kind of questionable. But anyway, we could discuss this topic for several hours, I fear. And basically my conclusion is that I wanted to shine a light on some of these concerns, and you can go read them on Goodreads if you want. But at the same time, even though the depiction that we recognized as autistic coded was quite stereotypical and not ideal, it didn't break the book for me, and on the contrary, I think it was one of the aspects that contributed to me feeling quite at home in this book. Even though fairies and like magical lands isn't a huge interest for me in books, I enjoyed reading from Emily and also sometimes Wendell's perspective so much. I enjoyed the stories, I enjoyed the fairies. As I said, the dynamics between Wendell and Emily was also something. Really enjoyed the extremely slow starting, slow burn romance, even though it is openly discussed from some point in the book. Among the side characters, there is a sapphic romance with a woodcutting lesbian. So overall, I'm so glad that Booktube made me read it. Honestly, it was my favorite of the 3 books I read for this video. I think it has to be 5 stars. And I'm glad it's a series, so I want to read the sequel definitely sooner than later. But yeah, that marks the end of this video. As I've said multiple times, it was such a good experiment. So successful, and I'm really glad I did it. If you have read any of these books, definitely tell me your thoughts, or tell me if there's a book that Booktube made you read. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!